Let's travel back to the year 43 AD, when the Roman Empire, led by Emperor Claudius, turned its eyes towards Britannia, a land full of valuable resources and strong tribes. Our story begins with Emperor Claudius, who became leader after his nephew Caligula was killed. Claudius needed to prove he could be a great leader. He chose to conquer Britannia, a place rich in resources like metals, which had resisted Roman control since Julius Caesar's time. Winning Britannia would make Claudius famous as a great emperor. In spring of 43 AD, Claudius sent 4 legions, about 20,000 soldiers, led by General Aulus Plautius, from Gesoriacum to Britannia. They landed on the southern coast without anyone stopping them and started to move inland. The Romans met the Britons at the River Medway. This important battle showed the Romans' strength and smart planning. They defeated the Briton leaders Togodumnus and Caradicus, clearing the way for more Roman victories. After these early wins, Emperor Claudius came to lead the final attack on Camulodunum, the capital of the local tribes. His arrival with war elephants and many soldiers showed that the Romans were there to stay. The capture of Camulodunum showed how the Romans used their power to take control. With Camulodunum under Roman rule, set up as a home for retired soldiers, Rome's control in Britannia started to grow stronger. The Romans kept spreading their influence, using their army and building new settlements to ensure they stayed in charge. As Rome's control spread, not everyone was happy being ruled by outsiders. Among the tribes, anger was building, and soon a strong leader would arise. Boudicca, queen of the Iceni tribe, would bring the Britons together to fight back against Rome. This first chapter about the Roman arrival sets up our story. As we move forward, remember the background of Roman ambitions in the strength of the Britons. This is the setting for the story of Boudicca, which we will explore next. In the rich lands of what is now Norfolk, the Iceni tribe made their home. They were led by King Prasutagus and his powerful wife, Boudicca. Boudicca was a respected leader, known for her sharp mind and strong sense of what was fair. Her story takes a dark turn that sets the stage for a legendary uprising. The Iceni tribe, living in a region rich with natural resources, maintained a relatively independent life under the oversight of their king and queen. They enjoyed local autonomy, while the shadow of Rome loomed ever closer. Prasutagus, the king, aimed to ensure peace after his death by leaving his kingdom to both his daughters and the Roman Emperor Nero. This decision was meant to protect his family and maintain the independence of his tribe under Roman rule. However, the reality unfolded differently. Upon Prasutagus' death, the Romans completely disregarded his will. Instead of protection, his family received cruelty. Roman soldiers seized the Iceni lands and took control of the tribe with brutal force. Boudicca was publicly humiliated and beaten, and her daughters were grievously harmed. This brutal act by the Romans was not just an attack on her family, but an insult to the dignity of the entire Iceni tribe. The mistreatment of her family and the usurpation of her tribe's sovereignty turned Boudicca's grief into fury. These actions by the Romans ignited a burning desire within Boudicca to seek revenge. No longer just a queen, she became a symbol of the struggle for justice and freedom against oppressive rule. Fueled by her personal tragedy and the collective discontent among her people, Boudicca began to forge alliances with neighboring tribes. Her charisma and the justness of her cause rallied many to her side. The stage was set for a conflict that would challenge the might of the Roman Empire in Britannia. As Boudicca's resolve strengthened, so did the resolve of her followers. From the ashes of betrayal and loss, a leader emerged, ready to direct the fury of her people into a full-scale rebellion. The tale of Boudicca is not just one of personal vengeance, but a fight for the freedom of a people under the yoke of an empire. As tensions mounted in Britannia, the Roman Empire's response was spearheaded by a formidable leader, Gaius Suetonius Paulinus. A veteran general with a reputation for strict military discipline and effective governance, Paulinus faced a significant challenge as he confronted the increasing unrest among the British tribes. Gaius Suetonius. Paulinus was a career military man, respected across the Roman Empire for his strategic mind and experience in warfare. His previous successes in campaigns across Africa and Gaul had earned him the trust of the Roman leadership, positioning him as the ideal candidate to secure Roman interests in the turbulent region of Britannia. Upon his appointment as governor, Paulinus's first major task was to quell the Druidic resistance in Anglesey, known to the Romans as Mona. The island was a cultural and religious stronghold for the Britons and housed many influential Druids. Paulinus believed that by subduing this center of British culture and resistance, he could stabilize the region. Paulinus led a rigorous campaign, bringing the full might of Rome to bear on the Druids. His forces cut down sacred groves, destroyed sanctuaries, and executed Druid leaders, aiming to dismantle the power structures that fueled resistance against Roman rule. His tactics were brutal but effective, leaving a clear message to any who would oppose Rome's authority. However, while Paulinus was focused on the Druids, unrest was brewing across other parts of Britannia. Boudicca seized this opportunity, rallying tribes and preparing for rebellion. Paulinus's preoccupation in Anglesey meant that he was initially unaware of the scale of the brewing storm. This oversight would cost him dearly, as it allowed Boudicca's forces to gather strength and momentum. As Paulinus celebrated his victories in Anglesey, the seeds of a larger conflict were being sown. His initial successes were overshadowed by the growing threat of Boudicca's rebellion. The story now turns to a critical juncture, as two formidable leaders, Paulinus and Boudicca, prepare to clash in a conflict that would echo through the annals of history. In 60 AD, the undercurrents of discontent and injustice ignited into open rebellion. Boudicca, now more than a queen to her people, a symbol of defiance against tyranny, rallied the Iceni and neighboring tribes against their Roman oppressors. Fueled by the outrageous mistreatment of her family and her people, Boudicca stepped into the role of leader and catalyst for resistance. Her ability to inspire and lead became evident as she gathered the scattered forces of resentment and forged them into a focused tool of rebellion. With fiery speeches and unwavering determination, she called upon the tribes of Britannia to unite under a single cause: freedom from Roman domination. Word of her rallying cry spread like wildfire through the tribes of Britannia. Boudicca's charisma and the righteousness of her cause drew warriors from across the region. The Iceni, joined by the Trinovantes, the Cornovi, and other tribes, came together to form a massive army. Each group brought not only their warriors, but also a fierce desire to reclaim their freedom and exact revenge on their occupiers. Meanwhile, the Roman officials, preoccupied with their own affairs and the recent successes against the Druids, underestimated the threat posed by Boudicca. The Romans failed to grasp the scale of the unrest or the capability of the tribes united under such a powerful figure. This miscalculation allowed Boudicca's forces to grow stronger and more organized, preparing them for major actions against Roman strongholds. Boudicca's strategy was clear and decisive. Her first targets were symbols of Roman authority and oppression. The rebels planned to attack Roman settlements that were not only strategic, but also held deep significance for the humiliation and suffering of the native Britons. These targets included Camulodunum, modern-day Colchester, a former tribal capital turned Roman colony, symbolizing the Roman takeover and cultural imposition. As the tribes rallied and marched under Boudicca's banner, the landscape of Britannia braced for conflict. What began as a spark of rebellion quickly flared into a raging fire, a fire that aimed to burn the Roman presence from the lands of the Britons. The stage was set for a confrontation that would test the resolve of both the empire and the rebels, a pivotal moment in the history of Britannia. As Boudicca's rebellion gained momentum, the initial Roman response was marked by surprise and disarray. The seasoned general Paulinus, although a master tactician, found himself grappling with an unexpected and rapidly escalating threat. News of the widespread uprising reached Paulinus at a critical time. He was taken aback by the scale and ferocity of the attacks. Roman settlements, which had grown complacent under the seemingly stable Roman rule, were completely unprepared for the intensity and speed of the rebel forces led by Boudicca. The first waves of the rebellion hit the Roman colonies hard. Settlements like Camulodunum, which symbolized Roman control and oppression, were among the first targets. The rebels, fueled by years of accumulated resentment, struck with brutal efficiency. Roman defenses, undermanned and overextended, struggled to cope with the onslaught. In the chaos, the Roman response was fragmented. Local Roman forces, scattered across various settlements, were quickly overwhelmed. Communications were slow, and the command structure struggled to grasp the full extent of the uprising. The lack of immediate and coordinated action allowed Boudicca's forces to move swiftly, laying waste to Roman outposts and towns with little resistance. Caught off guard and facing a dire situation, Paulinus was forced to reevaluate his strategy. Known for his decisive action and strategic acumen, he began to gather his forces, pulling in legions from different parts of Britannia. His aim was to consolidate his troops, form a coherent defense, and plan a counteroffensive. However, the speed of the rebel advance gave him limited time to prepare. As the rebellion spread like wildfire, Paulinus worked against the clock to mount an effective response. The initial shock had passed, and the Roman military machine began to mobilize with all its might. But as they prepared, the Romans remained under intense pressure, facing a determined and united enemy. The stage was set for a dramatic and decisive confrontation that would determine the fate of Roman rule in Britannia. As Boudicca's rebellion intensified, her forces turned their wrath towards the symbols of Roman oppression in Britannia. The destruction of key Roman towns not only weakened the Roman hold, but also sent a powerful message of defiance. Camulodunum, modern Colchester, a hub of Roman administration and culture, was the first to face Boudicca's fury. This city, replete with Roman temples and statues, represented Roman imperialism in the eyes of the Britons. It was here that Boudicca's forces unleashed their pent-up anger, taking the city completely by surprise. The defenders were quickly overrun, and the city was subjected to a ruthless sack. Buildings were burned, statues toppled, and its inhabitants either slaughtered or forced to flee in terror. Emboldened by their success at Camulodunum, the rebel army then advanced towards Londinium, London, a burgeoning trade center on the River Thames. Despite its economic importance, Londinium was not fortified, making it vulnerable to attack. As news of Boudicca's approach spread, many of the city's residents fled, abandoning it to its fate. Those who remained or could not escape faced the relentless wrath of the Iceni and their allies. The onslaught continued at Verulamium, St. Albans, another significant Roman settlement. Like the cities before it, Verulamium was overwhelmed by the sheer force of the rebels. Shops, homes, and public buildings were set ablaze, and the streets ran red with the blood of the slain. The economic and cultural loss was immense, with precious artifacts, records, and resources destroyed in the carnage. The psychological shock of these attacks on key cities reverberated throughout Roman Britannia. The economic backbone of the province was severely damaged, disrupting trade routes and causing scarcity of goods. Roman citizens across the region now lived in fear, unsure where the rebels would strike next. The authority of Rome was directly challenged, showcasing Boudicca's ability not only to unite the tribes against a common enemy, but also to strategically cripple the Roman presence. The destruction of these towns marked a turning point in the rebellion. With each victory, Boudicca's forces grew bolder and her following larger. The Roman response, initially slow and uncoordinated, was now compelled to address this substantial threat directly. The stage was set for a significant confrontation, one that would not only determine the future of Roman rule in Britannia, but also define the legacy of Boudicca and her quest for vengeance. The escalating conflict between Boudicca's rebel forces and the Roman legions culminated in the decisive Battle of Watling Street. This battle would not only determine the fate of the rebellion, but also the future of Roman influence in Britannia. General Paulinus, aware of the overwhelming numbers of the Briton forces, made a strategic decision in choosing the location for the confrontation. He selected a narrow defile, flanked by dense woodlands, which served to neutralize the numerical advantage of Boudicca's army. This terrain forced the Britons to funnel their massive forces through a tight space, dramatically reducing their ability to overwhelm the Roman formations. As Boudicca's army approached, the air was thick with tension and the heavy scent of impending conflict. With a ferocious cry, the Briton forces charged, attempting to break through the Roman lines with sheer force. However, the Roman legions, disciplined and well-prepared, held their ground steadfastly. From their tightly organized formations, they unleashed a devastating volley of javelins, thinning the ranks of the charging Britons. After the initial barrage of javelins, Paulinus commanded a countercharge. The Roman soldiers, heavily armored and highly trained, pushed forward in a disciplined wave. Their shields locked together and swords thrusting, the Romans cut through the disorganized masses of Briton warriors. The narrowness of the battlefield meant that Boudicca's numerical advantage was turned into a disadvantage, as her troops struggled to maneuver and were funneled into the waiting blades of the Romans. The battle was intense and bloody, with high casualties on both sides. But the discipline and strategic positioning of the Roman legions ultimately led to a catastrophic loss for the Britons. The rebel forces were decimated and their momentum broken. The defeat was not just a military loss, but also a psychological blow to the rebellion. The Battle of Watling Street marked the end of Boudicca's uprising. The surviving Briton warriors dispersed, and Boudicca herself vanished from history, with legends suggesting various fates for the Iceni queen. This battle reaffirmed Roman dominance in Britannia, but at a cost that would lead to a more cautious and moderated approach to governing the province in the years that followed. The dust settled on the battlefield of Watling Street, leaving behind a grim aftermath that reshaped the course of Britannian and Roman histories. While the immediate outcome silenced the swords, the echoes of the conflict reverberated through time, shaping legacies and governance. The fate of Boudicca, the fearless leader of the Britons, remains shrouded in mystery and legend. Some historical accounts suggest that she took her own life to escape the disgrace of capture by the Romans, a testament to her unyielding spirit even in defeat. With her demise, the flame of major resistance in Britannia dimmed significantly. The tribes, lacking the unifying force Boudicca provided, fragmented and could no longer mount a substantial challenge to Roman rule. In the immediate aftermath, General Paulinus initiated a series of harsh retaliations against any remaining pockets of resistance, a brutal suppression aimed at cementing Roman dominance and preventing any future uprisings. However, these actions did not go unnoticed or unchecked. The Emperor Nero, upon reviewing reports of the widespread devastation and harsh treatment of the native Britons, deemed Paulinus's actions excessive. Concerned about the stability of the province and the morality of such harshness, Nero recalled Paulinus back to Rome. In place of repression, a new strategy emerged under subsequent Roman administrators. Learning from the fallout of the uprising, Roman governance in Britannia shifted towards a more conciliatory approach. Efforts were made to integrate the Britons more fully into the Roman system through cultural exchanges, economic incentives, and less oppressive military presence. This shift aimed not only to maintain peace, but also to foster a sense of Roman-Briton unity. Despite or perhaps because of her ultimate defeat, Boudicca's legend grew over the centuries. She became a symbol of resistance against tyranny, celebrated for her courage and determination to stand up against a far mightier foe. Her story, passed down through generations, serves as a powerful testament to the indomitable human spirit and the enduring fight for justice and freedom. The rebellion led by Boudicca left an indelible mark on the history of Britannia and the Roman Empire. It highlighted the complexities of empire building and the volatile nature of colonial rule. While it brought temporary destruction, it also paved the way for reforms that would shape the future interactions between the conquerors and the conquered. Boudicca remains a figure of inspiration, her story resonating with those who seek to challenge oppression and advocate for the rights and dignity of all peoples. As we reflect on the echoes from the past, Boudicca's tale is a powerful reminder of the enduring human spirit against overwhelming odds. This saga, marked by struggle and defiance, showcases not only the fierce resistance of a queen and her people, but also illuminates the complexities of conquest and governance. Boudicca's legacy, woven into the fabric of history, continues to inspire those who hear her story, resonating as a symbol of courage and resilience. Thank you for joining us on this remarkable journey through history. We invite you to subscribe for more tales of bravery and conflict, and to share your thoughts and reflections in the comments below. What moments in history have moved you? What leaders in times of turmoil have inspired you? Let us know and continue exploring the vast landscapes of history with us. Until next time, keep the spirit of inquiry alive and remain curious about the past, for it always has more to reveal.